Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into a story that honestly feels like it was pulled straight out of a Hollywood sports documentary, but it is entirely 100% real. We're looking at the rapid, record-breaking, and just utterly astonishing rise of a young man who has sent absolute shockwaves through the entire global cricket community.
Just think about that for a second. Let it really sink in. 15 साल की उम्र में जब ज़्यादातर बच्चे स्कूल होमवर्क कर रहे होते हैं, तब एक लड़का दुनिया के बेस्ट बॉलर्स को बाउंड्री के बाहर भेज रहा था। ये कहानी है वैभव सूर्यवंशी की, एक नाम जिसने पूरे क्रिकेट वर्ल्ड को शॉक कर दिया। I mean, it's a contrast that's almost hard to wrap your head around, right? But as we're gonna see, his reality is anything but ordinary.
Chapter 1. Small Town Dream. So, far away from the bright stadium lights of Mumbai or Chennai, Vaibhav's story actually begins in the really small village of Tajpur in Bihar. And to understand his dedication, you just need to know the number 100. That's the grueling number of kilometers Vaibhav and his father traveled every single alternate day, 100 kilometers, just to get from their village in Samastipur all the way to Manish Oja's Gen Next Cricket Academy in Patna. This wasn't just some casual weekend hobby. This was a massive, exhausting commute dedicated to one singular focus.
And that really gets to the core of his success, because it wasn't built on overnight fame at all. It was built on real, immense family sacrifice. His father, Sanjeev, literally sold the family's farmland just to fund Vaibhav's training. His mother, Arti, she was up at 4 a.m. every single morning to prepare his meals for those long trips. And at the academy, his childhood coach noted that Vaibhav hit the ball with such terrifying power, even from a super young age, that literally no bat lasted more than a month. He was just routinely breaking bats, which of course meant his family had to constantly scrape together money to buy new ones.
Chapter 2. The Talent Everyone Noticed.
Okay, so all of that relentless training, all that raw power, it eventually had to translate into competitive results, right? And when it did, it absolutely forced everyone in the Indian domestic circuit to sit up and take notice. Just walk through this timeline with me, because it's insane. At 12 years and 284 days old, he makes his first-class Ranji Trophy debut against Mumbai. That shattered modern-era debut records previously held by absolute legends like Sachin Tendulkar and Yuvraj Singh. Then at 13, he hits the fastest youth test century by an Indian against Australia. At 14, he debuts in the IPL and scores a century. And by 15, he earns his maiden call-up to the senior Indian T20I squad. No way, right?
Chapter 3. The Breakthrough.
With domestic records just tumbling left and right, the national selectors' hands were essentially forced. Vaibhav's career was basically launching into the stratosphere at this point. In the Vijay Hazare Trophy, he played an innings that completely defied logic. He scored 190 runs off just 84 balls against Arunachal Pradesh. And get this, during that historic knock, he reached 150 in a mind-boggling 59 balls. That broke A.B. de Villiers' world record for the fastest 150 in List A cricket history. And remember, he was only 14 years old at the time.
But wait, he wasn't done. On the global stage, during the 2026 Under-19 World Cup final against England, he didn't just participate, he utterly dominated the game. He smashed 175 runs off exactly 80 balls. That included 15 fours and 15 massive sixes. It was literally the highest individual score ever recorded in an Under-19 World Cup final.
Chapter 4. The Match That Changed Everything.
Now, youth and domestic cricket are one thing, but the pressure cooker of the Indian Premier League, that is an entirely different beast. But at the IPL auction, the Rajasthan Royals made a totally historic move. They purchased Jagdas Vaibhav for 1.10 crore rupees. That made him the youngest player ever sold at an IPL auction at just 13 years old. They saw the raw potential and they backed it with serious money. And man, did that investment pay off. Let's fast forward to April 28, 2025. Playing against the Gujarat Titans, Vaibhav reached his century in just 35 balls. 35 balls. It wasn't just the fastest IPL century ever by an Indian player, he also became the youngest player to ever score a century in both the IPL and men's T20 cricket overall. The crowd at Sawai Man Singh Stadium basically witnessed absolute history that night.
So what's really fascinating here is exactly how he does this. When we look at the analytics from his 2026 IPL season, it reveals a highly sophisticated tactical mind. It's not just blind hitting. In the power play, he weaponizes the field restrictions with a blistering strike rate of 182.45. Then, in the middle overs, when the field spreads out and the spinners come on, he smartly adapts. He drops to a 144.12 strike rate. just manipulating the gaps. But then in the death overs, he completely destroys bowling attacks with an astronomical strike rate of 215.38. He literally has a 360-degree game that gives bowlers nowhere to hide.
So, his monumental sophomore season ended with him basically sweeping all the major awards. We're talking MVP, the Orange Cap with 766 runs, Emerging Player of the Season, and the Super Sixes Award with 72 sixes. And this unprecedented performance directly led to him replacing none other than Surya Kumar Yadav in the senior national T20I squad. Talk about a passing of the torch.
The complication, the age debate.
Now, with any meteoric rise like this, there are going to be complications. And a major one has emerged in the media regarding his actual age. There are two very distinct narratives out there. On one hand, we have the official stance. Vaibhav's father, Sanjeev, strongly insists his son's official age of 15 is completely accurate. He points out that Vaibhav actually underwent and passed a BCCI-mandated bone density test at 8.5 years old, and has consistently cleared them ever since. On the other hand, sports journalists like Gideon Hai have claimed that their sources suggest Vaibhav might actually be 19 or 20. And adding fuel to that fire, an old video interview from 2023 surfaced where Vaibhav seemed to imply he was turning 14 that year. If that were true, it would make him about 17 today.
To understand why this is such a heavily debated and sensitive topic, we really just need to look at this quote from former Indian captain Rahul Dravid back in 2015. He correctly noted that age discrepancies are a massive systemic issue in domestic cricket. Why? Because in junior age groups, being a year or two older provides a massive physical advantage in terms of sheer strength. So whether Vaibhav is 15, 17, or 19, the debate itself really highlights a persistent sensitivity within the junior levels of the sport.
Chapter 5, Future Superstar?
But okay, let's step back from the controversy for a second. Because regardless of what the exact paperwork says, what Vaibhav Suryavanshi is doing against the highest level of professional adult bowling in the world is simply undeniable. He clearly possesses a once-in-a-generation talent with a bat in his hands. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Kya Vaibhav agla Virat Kohli ban sakta hai? Ya phir usse bhi bada star? I mean, what is the actual ceiling for a player who destroys international bowling attacks before he even has a driver's license?
Ultimately, his story is an incredible testament to resilience and hard work. एक छोटे से सपने ने पूरे इंडिया को इंस्पायर कर दिया और ये कहानी अभी शुरू हुई है. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. What do you think about Vaibhav's future? Think about it and I'll see you next time.